Today we have War 9, and now just for the start, I'm going to have this paused, just to talk about one thing real quick. Recently I've had a bunch of questions about, sort of why I go for, like, Doom, or, other examples during planning for a lot of these fights, where another option may have a simpler fight. In this war in particular, I have two fights, so this kind of shows. I have a Sorcerer Supreme and a Professor X, both on fairly simple nodes later in this war. And, you may be like, why not just torch this? It's very simple torch fights. And the main thing, I sort of have as my philosophy for planning is, instead of going for, Torch has a really simple fight against the Sorcerer Supreme. Torch has a really simple fight against this Professor X, which is true, and he's a fine counter to them. You may have a better counter that, maybe takes a little bit more thought. Like, for example, in the Sorcerer Supreme, if I were to go with the Sorcerer Supreme, use Torch, get a few armor breaks on me, and get hit during Fury phase, if you get unlucky with crits, you just die there. Instead, you can use Doom. Be armor break immune. You're going to have crit resist, you're going to have high armor, you're going to have really good control of the fight overall, and it's extremely hard to die, even if the fight does get a little bit more complicated. This will harm your fight time, of course, but I think it's worth it for the safety. And then for this Professor X, similar deal. Torch can very easily die here, and with Doom, you pretty much can't die there. Unless you somehow tank a special 3, but that's quite hard to do. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. This is two pretty light examples, but I tend to do this with almost everything for planning, or instead of, just sending, like, Torch for everything, or, like, a bunch of other options that, can make a fight fairly simple, and they can take it fairly well. They have a lot of things that can potentially go wrong in the fight, and I like to be more calculated with each fight and think about, okay, what can go wrong in this fight? How is someone going to die to this fight? Instead of just, what's a simple fight here? What's going to get this fight done the quickest? And yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about here. Just a little bit of what I do for planning. I know a lot of allies do it extremely different from me. I've sort of just adopted a similar planning philosophy to Iron Patriot over in NXS, because we talk about planning a lot, and it works quite well. So, yeah, I wanted to give some insight on that. Okay, so now let's get to the fights. First of all, we have a Magneto on Node 5, Strike Counter Fury, Power Struggle. We're going to be popping Nova Flames, and we have an invulnerability boost here. Anytime I'm using Torch, I'm going to try and pop an invuln if possible, just because of how squishy he is, especially on a node that can be so punishing like this. We mess up a little bit on the heavy timing at the start, but it doesn't punish me, and I like to just go for the basic Strike Counter Fury combo here, where you go for a heavy, medium, light combo, and then medium into your special. Makes it simpler, and yeah. Very quick and easy fight. Just relying on that invuln if I mess up here. Now, for this Overseer on node 14, what we want to do here is get to the second heavy off, and then we're going to activate Frenzy, we're going to pop her L2s, and the fight will just end. Simple as that. He does have the special concussion here, which will lower your second special damage and all, but by the time that's out, the fight will just be over. And now we're going to wait out the stun immune. We'll take a little bit of brute force damage, but it's worth it to not accidentally lose any monster mass from missing a reparry. Then we activate this. We go in with a combo to give that little bit extra power to make sure we can chain. And then after this L2, we get that L2 back. Fight's over. And we launched the special before special concussion could stop the unblockable. So we just launched that before that activated, if you're wondering what happened there, which lets it always trigger unblockable. And now for the spider gun, similar deal here, except there's a lot less health, so it's going to be a lot easier to cheese this. And there's no brute force, of course. We get hit there for missing a reparry, whatever. It happens. I shouldn't have thrown this medium, but I did. And now we have 2 heavies that we have to throw while maintaining this. And yeah, it's just a sticky situation, but with Moma, you can always just reliably get to that L2, end the fight, and those Furies don't end up mattering, thankfully. And now we have a Power Snack Doom. I've taken this fight like a million times, so you guys can just watch one of the other videos if you need commentary on this, but it doesn't end up having Mystic Dispersion, which makes it an extremely simple fight to keep control of. Now we have an EMP mod Poco. My idea for this fight was just playing it super simple with Burden of Might, using this Power Start 1 and Mystic Power Booster, so that if I do, so that there's less risk of me accidentally dexing before I'm in the cycle. And the main thing, we just want to avoid triggering dex. unless we trigger Dex and throw the L3 at the same time, and then it won't be an issue. But yeah, with Bubble Shield, that's the other thing to worry about. You don't want him to throw a special when Bubble Shield can kill you. Here, we just block the whole thing to not trigger Dex. And this actually lets me get to a nice little period where we can bait out that Bubble Shield charge. Although we accidentally did this by eating a heavy, it doesn't really matter since it's Doom. But yeah, that was a bit of a mistake there, and we lost some health. But what it did let me do is get that Bubble Shield without any risk of him launching a special one. And now, using a Mystic Power Booster, I'm going to do a similar strategy I've done in the past on Black Widow Deadly Origin on Path 5 Section 2, where I just go for the lights instead of throwing that L1. And this will allow him to never go to a special one. And what this does is make it so if he can never get an unblockable special one and kill me, because that's what I'm really worried about in this fight. I'm perfectly capable of dexing its special 2 every single time, so this lets it be a super safe fight. Sorcery Supreme, we have an invuln boost here in case we tank an L3, say we mess up our Doom cycle or something. I was a little bit worried about that, and I have like 5 million invulns, so we just popped in. And yeah, we're just going to pay attention to when she's in the power gain phase, try and prevent her from using slow or anything like that during that power gain phase, and then it'll just be an easy fight. Throwing the L1s, because they have such a long duration during this power phase, will make her chance of throwing a special during it drastically lower, which is quite nice. Normally I wouldn't like to use Source for Doom. Doom for Source, but this is quite the easy node, so it's not an issue. And now she's going to get to an L3, but this will stagger her regen, and with MD, well, I thought it would stagger her regen, but I guess it didn't, and I just got to the L3. But yeah, we get to our L3, and now the fight is over. We're going to throw an L3, we're going to throw an L1, we're going to throw an L2, and she will die from that L2, because she has a fairly low health pool. Now, for this Ihulk, 2 things to note here. We're going to use all the bleeds pairing with the Despair Mastery to make Buffet not heal so much. And we're going to be throwing L1s. This will be letting me use the shocks to make sure we kill him before 15 of those charges. Because with Buffet, there is some worry that he may get to 15 charges if you don't throw this L1. So we're just going to do that to make sure we never have to worry with the second phase at all. And it works quite well here. And now we have a King Groot on Safeguard. The main idea here is to not let him throw an unblockable special 2. That's really the only thing that can kill you in this fight. We're just going to make sure we use the special 1 and special 2 rotation, keeping that Aura of Hazareth as much as possible to make it really easy, even if he's not being nice with throwing specials. And the special 2s will do considerable damage. It's not going to be crazy or anything, but it'll be enough that it's not a ridiculously long fight. Still a pretty long fight, but nowhere near timing out or anything. Now, for the 53 BWDO Deadly Origin, again, another example of what I was talking about at the start of this video with my thoughts for war planning. Doom is someone that doesn't generally get used for this fight, from my understanding. I've generally seen a lot of molemans, maybe some ghosts. But the thing is, Doom really does handle this fight extremely well, because he just can't fucking die to Black Widow. And it's really as simple as that. And he does have the incinerates off his L2 that will lead to some pretty big damage. And yeah, very, very easy fight with Doom. And there's one thing to note, during her special one evade, you can't actually just hit into it, because she can't retaliate from her evade. Which makes it so you never really need an evade counter if you do have a shock immune, and Doom is shock immune. So if you do end up hitting into that evade counter, it will actually just be free willpower. Here, I'm slowing my combo to get the second shock up, to try and make this fight a little bit slower. We mess it up sometimes, but sometimes we get it like right there, and it lets me get this L2 super quickly, and that's sort of the ideal rotation for this. We didn't have a 200% Mystic booster, so we're getting a little bit less power back, and this fight will take a little bit longer, but not an issue. Here, we missed this intercept, but again, it's Doom, it doesn't matter. Other champions would have taken a fuck ton of damage from doing all that right there. Probably would have died, but Doom, he doesn't give a shit, because it's Doom. And now we're just gonna try build to the L2, use Mystic Dispersion on that precision, get the fight going, back in my control, get to that L2, fight will be going smoothly, yet again. We probably should have waited this Aura of Hazarth out to push Black Widow to an L2. Thankfully, it didn't matter here, because we end up getting a combo here anyway, and get full advantage of that stun vuln, hit her with a massive heavy, get some big damage there. And now we're just trying to build to one last L2, and it will kill. Or, maybe we don't even need one, but she throws a special one here. We're going to have to wait that out, or hopefully hit into her evade. But either way, going to lead to a bit of a longer fight. And we end up beating the heavy, which is whatever, because it's Doom. Again, he doesn't really care. So, here is this Professor X on Limber and Brute Force. We're going to take a little bit of Brute Force damage, but I calculated that with the Mystic Power Booster and everything, we're going to be able to kill this fight on the first L3, so there wasn't going to be any risk of actually dying the Brute Force damage with such a quick fight. Again, you could torch this, but Doom is just infinitely safer with how well of control and how solid his tankiness is during this fight. And you'll see, again, another perfect example of why I just go for this, because, nothing can mess up here. And now for war results, we got a donut in BD2, which is really nice. Very happy with that, and we ended up winning this war. Won pretty comfortably, so nice win here to get us back on track, and let's just keep winning.